So I'm going to speak about API 2.0. I don't know if you can see anything there. Yeah, okay. So Andrew already did a great job introducing you that there is a new API looming. But the question is, why would PortaOne spend any resources changing the API, building some new API and so on? Why bother with all that? The existing API that we have in the product was introduced at the end of 2006. For some of you, this number will sound not too big. That was maintenance release 14. And I know it very well because that was right before I joined PortaOne. So I joined in January 2007, and MR14 was like 1 month old. And it had like first API methods for customer and account management. That's about it. The concept of that API was to follow the data model of the database. You have a table in the database, you have an object in the API. You have some columns in the table, you have some properties of the object. So it used exactly the same naming as in the database, and the database was introduced, Andrew can correct me, but I believe is in 2001. I mean, the main structures, the main tables were introduced in 2001. And it was mostly designed for prepaid services. So a lot of naming in existing API dates back to prepaid services in 2001. When you get a developer trying to figure out like what to do with these objects, what do I actually need to call and what information I need to get, sometimes it becomes a nightmare. Like people who didn't get a training in PortaSwitch, it's difficult for them to understand it. So that outdated naming was the first and foremost reason to build a new API. But that's not the only issue. Let's imagine you need to work with customer information and your portal cares only about contact information of the customer. So your developer builds a portal, a page in the portal which shows contact information, but suddenly they get a huge structure with a lot of parameters, some of them with those cryptic outdated names. And how do they use it? Like what to do with those? What do they mean? So that's another problem. And the last one is that the API, because the way it's designed is that when you need to work with some object, and obviously objects have relations to other objects, and those objects have relation to other objects. So as many objects you need to work with, as many API calls you have to make. So you start with option, you have tariff, you have some other things, and for each of those things, you need at least additional API call. So you present to the user something which is very straightforward, simple, your product, your package, something which is everybody understands. But to get that information out of the system, you need to make multiple. So these were the main reasons why we decided to build a new API. I already mentioned the naming, so that we, for API methods, we used a standard, which is familiar for most developers who do web services, who do some sort of integrations. The documentation remains. The documentation is not going to change. It's going. I would say you use a modern terminology of telcos. It should be easier to develop new application. In terms of performance and in terms of, again, understanding what you are dealing with, we introduced a new feature where developer can decide what part of the information they need to get from the API request. So as I mentioned, if they query for the customer, now they can specify that I only need this portion of information from the customer, for example, contact information. And the rest, I don't even bother. I don't need that information in my current API request. And the last thing which we introduced is an ability to call a tree of objects, like object and then a related object and then another related object. So a tree of objects in a single API call. So you can specify that In addition to my product, I want to get also information about subscriptions, volume discount plans, tariffs, whatever. And it will be a single call giving you this structure if you need all that information. And inside of the structure, you can still decide which fields you want to get and which fields you want to skip.
Is it faster than the 3 different calls?
Yes, it is. Imagine if you have a portal hosted somewhere in, I don't know, somewhere in Switzerland, and then the database or the portal switch runs in another country. In those cases, the change is drastic, I mean, in terms of performance, because your request travels over the network only once, right? So the benefits are pretty obvious after I explain these new features, is that you get better performance from most of applications. It's easier to troubleshoot because we also enhanced the error messaging. Like the existing API doesn't provide much information if something goes wrong, and troubleshooting is a bit challenging. So in API 2.0 we have, and I already got feedback from some of developers using the APIs that now it's much easier to understand why I send a request and nothing works. So the error messaging is better, and then we hope this is with new naming, with new terminology, it would be faster to develop portals and applications. And the last thing which I would like to mention specifically, the API 2.0 is far from being ready. We only have a couple of methods right now. Customer management, product management, that's about it. It will take like another year to get all the functionalities that we have in the product into this API 2.0. But I'm already talking about this right now. Guess why? Because unlike some of the companies I had experience in the past, for example, payment processors, when they introduce, at least I know example, when they introduce a new API, it's not backward compatible. And they issue a warning that the old API will be discontinued like 2 months before the change. We don't want to do that. We want to give you enough time, or your developers enough time, to prepare for this change. So I'm announcing it now, but the full-blown API with all the features, all the methods, all the objects will be only in probably 1 year. But your developers can already start reading the documentation, playing around, testing it. And as API grows, they can start moving some of your applications to the new API. We want this to be as stress-free process for you as possible. I mentioned the naming, right? If you change the names of the object, there is no way to make it backwards compatible. So we are either stuck with the old cryptic names, or we make something better, but it cannot be backward compatible.
So there's going to be an MR where that MR forward is going to be new API.
The new API is already there. MR sit-in is the first one which has product management in it. The API is already there, but it's just the number of methods which can be used is very limited.
So let's say in 2 years there's going to be an MR where it's going to be like deprecating the current REST and some
Yes,
APIs.
exactly.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Something to add to what Mike said, because indeed right now, if we count just the number of methods, we have 1,000 methods in the old API. And the new one will only have 100. It seems quite little. However, we started with the methods which were most popular and mostly used. So we already have full support for customer objects and are now working on account support. And this is something that 95% of all external applications they're working with, whether it's self-care portal, online sign-up, some scripts which do the customer export or import. So for majority of developers start porting, and if there's a new project, they can already start using this new style API. For instance, so PortaOne, right now it uses the existing API, but also with all the releases starting from tomorrow 90. But as soon as customer and account is completed, both are available, we'll immediately switch using new API and methods for managing service policies and managing fraud traffic profile, rates and tariffs. They will add it there, but there are not that many applications to do it. What I'm saying right now, majority of applications which you use probably within 2024 they already can be ported, can start using the new API.
So is there a specific roadmap somewhere for the rollout of the API in terms of timelines?
Not a specific one, because right now we want to measure our velocity. They took significant amount of time, and actually in the next quarter we're going to do a batch of smaller ones like service policies or something, and we'll know better what our capabilities, and then we can have tentative schedule this summer. Should we do rate tariff management, or should we do
subscriptions?
Subscriptions, for instance.
Yeah.
Should we do fraud traffic profile?
Yeah.
Just one question, since you're mentioning this, like, let's say converge objects in the responses. I'm just curious, I have two questions. The first one is, would this cover a case that I had recently where we wanted to export XDRs but understand to which invoice XDRs were invoiced? Would it solve this? Because, like, you know,
I don't think there is a direct relation between CDR and invoice, so probably.
Well, but on invoice there are like the rated. You can see the calls, right, with the prices.
Yeah.
And we wanted to have a way to understand, to get like the whole list of, let's say, all of the calls, and to understand to which invoice they were, you know, invoiced to. Yeah, exactly. So now there's like a workaround that you have to check the dates,
that's.
and then
we don't have it yet probably, but potentially this could be a thing when you request information about that invoice.
Yeah, exactly. You
and
get
there's an extra
like
option
the
saying I
rates.
want to have the full CDRs.
List,
Choose them by the period.
Yeah, that way around, it could be done.
Yeah.
The only point that we are not at the stage of building API for invoice management.
Fine, but if you are going to do that, essentially with this logic,
we could do that.
You could say, give me the position, right?
Yeah.
And the second question, did you ever think about building a GraphQL API instead of doing REST again, so that you could accommodate this? Because with GraphQL, you can build a query somehow. Like Shopify has it, and you can basically say to the API, give me the customer object, give me the order object or products. And basically the developer can choose how he wants to get the response from the API.
We did. And the conclusion was that we'll go with the REST because it's a bit simpler. And we have a lot of projects from our customers where it's something basic and just it would take them less amount of efforts and hassle to get something working. So GraphQL is
powerful.
You have really high performance things when you design it on backend side, and then the developers also they have to think through. Like right now, especially also with like proliferation of this like low-code platforms and things like that, REST is simpler to use.
Okay.
It's just shorter time to to get on board.
Okay. So you're building some. Are you building some sort of like backend for frontend then, in terms of that the new API is still interacting sort of with the same objects that we are interacting with now? So right now, let's say I'm using the current API, right? So I'm already doing a call to iCustomer to this, etc. So you're basically taking this logic and you're putting it into the new API, as I understand, right?
Yeah.
And renaming it.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mike, have you guys ever considered creating a GPT? As in training a GPT that can be used?
We do experiments, and for instance, we hope to launch the chat with documentation for people who they prefer to do it this way instead of like doing their own navigations. So yeah, for analyzing information which is there, it's good. I tried saying again, like here's the open API schema and like build an application.
Not yet.
It doesn't quite work that way yet.
But can you at least provide the documentation in a format that can be used to train education? I'm asking because I asked support for such a format, but I was told basically it's just a web page.
Well, ChatGPT understands Swagger, so if you get the OpenAPI 2 spec that they provide, you can just put it in as an attachment, or you can run the fine-tuning, so it should work. Not cheap though.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how you guys operate in Malta.
I think it could be useful later
Mhm.
in this process to have a kind of report or logs, something that we can check if we are still using the old one for certain things.
You can just ask
We will.
support. I
We
think.
definitely will
Yeah,
be
but we
providing
don't
this
want to
logs.
bother them all the time. So some sort of, I think would be interesting because then we force the dev team
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Definitely, because there are some applications which were developed some time ago and they
And-
work. Nobody remembers.
And nobody remembers that there is
how they
such an
work.
application. Yeah. Or who developed it and for what? Yeah. Yeah. That could be useful. Yeah, we can at least provide a list of like hosts from which the API requests are coming and which credentials they use. And then maybe it will give you enough information to realize
Or even just-
which portal or application or whatever it is. And maybe sometimes you will discover that something is accessing our system, which we have no idea, which we have no idea who it is or what it is.
Question. The new API and the work that's being done there,
Mhm.
will there be impact on the ESPF side of things?
That would be kind of next major point for revisiting. So this API, it's not related to
I know.
ESPF. You understand? Yeah. So we are not touching the ESPF yet.
External service
Provisioning framework.
as they call it. So
Yeah.
basically any action that is performed within PortaOne is then pushed out to some external
Yeah.
system. That's to replace SoCoban.
No, that's the official name for the Socoban. So it's the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. So that's basically event framework. Yeah, and I know that there are some things missing there, and I know that some things need improvement there. We have some ideas. It's on a wish list for now, and once we finish with API projects, then the next one will be the ESPF. Sorry? No. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Priority 0 would be a number routing, and then priority 1 will be ESPF. Any other questions?
Has the SOAP API already been deprecated?
No.
It's so you need that guy on your team as well, right?
We are too, but
Yeah.
but we're sending Mars back.
Don't touch it.
Why would you? Like it's slow. Why are you still using it? It's much slower than Rest,
You
right?
want to ask my Windows 2003 server that's running so?
Okay, sorry. No more questions. Sorry.
So it's coming along for the ride.
I'm sorry.
So SOAP it's coming along for the ride. It's even after when this.
I don't think there will be SOAP for this one for 2.0. We are not planning to introduce it yet. That will be REST only. But the old one, there are no plans to remove specifically SOAP part.
You see some benefits like preserving the SOAP base?
Just less work.
Yeah, just you don't have to redo things basically.
Yeah. Probably it was
It works.
Probably you're talking about some pieces which were developed back in the day when SOAP was the only option, right?
I'm not sure, but I think they actually say use SOAP for everything. I don't know if we use REST at all.
Well, it's probably this meeting is probably a good time to start planning switching over. Okay, well, thank you very much.